We talked today about church workers. You know, I think every pastor could reminisce and tell you in different churches he had been in, the different personalities I'm going to be talking about here today. And Paul worked with 4 different types of people in his ministry, and predominantly that's every church you go into, you're going to work with 4 types of people in the ministry. The first person that he worked with was the divisive person. All of us, we think about those who have been in church with us, either maybe present or past. You can think of divisive people. That's their nature. They want to always create dissension and create a problem. In Philippians 4:2, he says, I plead with Euodia and I plead with Syntyche to agree with each other in the Lord. These 2 women had not been getting along quite well and didn't live up to the meanings of their names. Euodia meant prosperous journey. Syntyche meant a pleasant acquaintance. I don't know if she really lived up to that or not. I don't know who was at fault in this argument, but anyway, they had an argument. And since Paul pleaded with these 2 to agree with each other in the Lord, it seems that they were causing dissension in the assembly. Now, just previously to that, he had written an earlier plea in Philippians 2, verses 1 through 4. He says, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any fellowship with the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being in one spirit and purpose. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only for your own interest, but also for the interest of others. Pastors too often have become arbitrators in the church. Our pastor is not excluded from that. I'm getting a little ringing up here. I don't have a sound person back there, but are you hearing that? Maybe it's just these monitors. But pastors have to become the person who settles disputes many times. And Christians, we have an obligation to take care of those disputes really before it ever go to the pastor. If you offend me, it is my responsibility, having been offended, to come to you and let's get the matter settled and the issue settled to where there's not ill feelings. It's not your responsibility because you may not have known that you offended me. And sometimes you do know that you might have offended me. And I would say if that's the case, then take the responsibility and get it fixed. In Matthew chapter 18, gives us a good way of handling these things. Whether you're Christians or whether you're just a secular person, this will work in both places. Matthew 18:15 through 17 says, if your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault just between the 2 of you. If he listens to you, you have won your brother over. But if he will not listen, take 1 or 2 others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, treat him as you would a pagan and a tax collector. Now, if you read the whole history of this church and many other churches back at the turn of the last century, you would see that they disciplined in those days. If you had 2 people who got in an argument and they wouldn't settle it, they would oust both of them out of the church until they could get their differences straightened out, and they came back and apologized to the church. Those days are pretty much gone. If we did that today, you'd sue us, and you'd own the church when you got done. And unfortunately, that's not good in our society. Not good in our churches either, because it causes our churches to be upside down many times. Also in Galatians 5:13, Christians are encouraged to love one another. For brethren, you have been called unto liberty. Only use not your liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. So Paul dealt with divisive people, and he's also going to deal with deserting people. If you look at our church rolls, we've had a lot of deserters. And it's not just Mount Harmony Baptist Church. We're in the mode of church shopping nowadays. People used to move to a community. I remember about 50 years ago when Ruth and I got married, when we moved into a community, we found a local church in that community. and that's where we went. But that's not so today. You have people who will drive 30 and 40 miles to go to the latest show on the block, and that happens. We've lost a lot of people, and we've gained a lot of people. Some of you have come to see the show. I hate to say it that way, but that's true. And when the show gets old, you'll move somewhere else. I don't know that God planned it that way, but that's the way our society is working today. So we will have some deserting people also. 2 Timothy 4:10 says, "For Demas, because he loved this world, has deserted me and gone on to Thessalonica." Paul needed Timothy. He was, because of the defection of Demas, he needed somebody there that would stand by him. Demas had deserted the apostle to embrace the safety and freedom of Thessalonica. I'm going to tell you, traveling with Paul was not exactly the safest experience you'd ever have in your life. If you read his resume about all the things that took place in his life, I don't know if I'd want to be caught in public with him and say I'm a Christian. I'm just like him, you know, because I'd get a beating also and maybe stoned. So it's not surprising that Paul would long for his most faithful servant, Timothy. You know, we have a tendency to want to be around those who are faithful with us and who we know that will stand with us. We live in a day where commitment to the Lord's work could use a shot in the arm. Many pastors are leaving the ministry for secular allure. I have a pastor who lives right above me. He's from a Methodist background, I believe, or Church of Christ, I can't remember which, but working in a secular field today. And that happens many times. I've known a lot of Southern Baptist pastors who've gotten out of the ministry. I'm going to tell you, the ministry's hard today. I've been in it almost 30 years, full-time ministry, and it was a lot more fun when I started than it is today because our society has changed, our congregation has changed, our mentality has changed, our attitude has changed. And so many pastors they're also deserting out of the ministry. Many members are also enticed out of the church. If you look at our church roll, I would be willing to say many of those who are inactive are not going anywhere to church. It's easy to become an inactive member. I've only been an inactive member once in my life, and that was when we moved to California years ago, and we made the mistake of going to the wrong church, the first church we visited, and we judged all churches in California by that one church, and we decided, well, we'll just wait till Uncle Sam moves us from San Diego, and we'll find a church then, I guess. But fortunately, we moved across town and found a great church over there that reminded me of Mount Harmony Baptist Church. I felt at home there. But it was so easy. The first Sunday, I felt a little guilty. We weren't going to church. Second Sunday, I didn't feel too guilty. And third Sunday, I don't remember that it was Sunday. And, you know, it was easy to stay home after that third Sunday. It's easy to drop out. You know, about 3 Sundays and you're a dropout. Jesus had some inactive followers also. You'd think that of all people in this world, Jesus, whoever followed him would stay with him all the time. But he had some disappointments also. In John 6, verse 53 through 60, Jesus said to them, "I tell you the truth, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life. You have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. Whoever eats of my flesh and drinks of my blood remains in me, and I in him. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your forefathers ate manna and died, but he who feeds on this bread will live forever." He said this while teaching in the synagogue at Capernaum. On hearing it, many of his disciples said, "This is a hard saying. We can't accept it." Many times, if Brother Buddy is preaching and he gets down on us, I mean, he draws us into accountability. Some people can't handle that. They say, "I've got to hear a pastor who lifts me up and who fills me with positive thoughts every Sunday. I've got to have that to feed on." But I'm going to tell you, every now and then, we who are Christians need to be brought into accountability.